It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody back to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. This is a post-UFC 313 edition and new edition. We have a lot to talk about. It was an exciting card, maybe a little womp-womp finish to the event, but still a lot to talk about. It was a great pay-per-view. I'm going to bring in the man. His name is on the marquee. You can follow him on Twitter or X, John Morgan _MMA. What's up, pal?
What's going on, man? Yeah, definitely, didn't end necessarily on a high note. You felt a little bit flat, but the way things shaped out does leave a lot of options open on the table. It makes it interesting. It's going to create some discussion moving forward. So, a solid pay-per-view, if not one of the best of the year. Still some entertainment, but we're going to talk about that, but let's not bury the lead and not talk about Eric McMahon being Mr. Vegas for the weekend as well. You know what I'm saying? Chilling out at the I saw you over at the Fontainebleau at Power Slap on Friday night. I was watching on YouTube. I saw you out there enjoying that moment. And then, of course, got to see you Cageside for the UFC event. So I was happy to see you out there chumming it up with the Nevada State Athletic Commission.
Yeah, man, it was really cool. Got to shadow and really kind of learn Power Slap. And I'm telling you, that is a harder thing to ref than MMA because the rules are they're still figuring out the system. They're still figuring out the rules. And it was like, making slight changes here and there. And like I was talking to Jason Herzog, brilliant mind in everything. He's so analytical in when you talk to him. So he's almost hard to follow at times until you like, okay, hold on. My analytical hat is on. Let's talk, right? And we really dialed it down into what is best and what is fair. And like when you have those, and so you're like, well, you have to turn your hips. If you're swinging by nature, you just can't stop at one point. So right. Yes, you can lift your foot and turn, but only after the slap, not before. And like, it's just this evolving process that was very interested to be in and sit there and learn and, hopefully one day be able to do it. But if nothing else, get to be in the spectacle that is Power Slap. And listen, I'm going to talk to all you betas out there. This is going to be a conversation specifically for you betas. All right. If they're willing to do it, I'm willing to watch it. All right. I don't care about your opinion. If you go to one of these live, you are a fan. I don't care where you stand on it's too violent, there's no defense, and blah, 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 blah. All valid arguments. Go to one live. Then let's have this conversation. Until you go to one live, I don't care about your opinion because in person was probably the greatest spectator event I have ever been to. And that says a lot. I work 44 NBA home games a year at minimum. I travel around to all these pro sports, shadow, do all these things. This is the single greatest spectator sport I have ever been part of.
It's so funny, man, because now I feel like I've got somebody to talk to, right? Like I've always told, if you watch Power Slap and as an observer you say to me, you know what, John, I think it's stupid and I don't like it. Okay, that's fine. I can understand that, right? I
agree with you on one level.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It is silly. It's ridiculous, right? But I'm telling you, if you go to one live, and I got fortunate enough that I actually was behind the scenes at the test event, like when they were just trying out the rules and see what it was like. So I got to see it from the infancy, and I'm telling you, the atmosphere and the way they host those events, it's just a big party going on in there, man. And the tension of those matches, it's crazy. So I'll never sit here and tell somebody, hey, man, you need to be a fan. This is the most in-depth sport that you've ever seen. But you said it. It's a spectacle, man, and it's an absolute party. They do a good job of putting on a live event. And Fontainebleau, by the way, I mean, what a gorgeous property is over there. Even I love Dana.
It felt poor just walking in.
All right, you are. As soon as you walk into Fontainebleau, you realize you were not supposed to be there. I thought it was funny in the post-313 press conference, which we'll get into, but Dana White actually said, he kind of chuckled and laughed a little bit about it. He was like, as they were building the Fontainebleau, I'm sure they really thought, hey, one day we'll have Power Slap in this room. You know what I mean? It's such a funny partnership. But, yeah, man, it was cool to see you out there, and I'm glad you got to experience it live because you're right. I understand the haters and people who don't like it. That's fine. Go ahead. But go check out a live event, dude. It is an absolute party, man. They do a great job.
Yeah, just on one side, it was all spectator thousands. On the other side, it was a VIP, like, nightclub party going on, which has created this atmosphere. And then in the middle, it's just two men smacking the piss out of each other. Hoo-wee. I'm here.
It's hilarious. Like you said, man, it's people that are signing up to do it, man. The bottom line is, if you like combat sports, you're saying that you understand you're okay with people punching each other in the face, right? You know what I mean? It's not like you're forcing two people. It's not like you go to a local prison and you grab two guys and you're like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
This is what you have to do today. You know, these are people signing up and they want to compete in it. So if it's not your cup of tea, I totally get it. But I'm telling you, man, if you want to go live, it is quite the atmosphere.
It is different live. Yeah, so that was tremendously awesome. And then, luckily they're like, hey, why don't you stick around? And then I got to work RO for a lot of the fights as a replay official for UFC 313, which was super, super cool. Let's dive right into it.
Yep.
I got to start at the walkout. You told me, Eric, I'm really glad you're going to be able to experience Alex Pereira walkout live. For how cool you think it is on TV to be there live for a Poatan walkout, it's like nothing you've seen before. The lights went out, 18,000+ people stood all at one time, just trying to get the first peek at this man. While the music, I mean, it is ominous. And then he does the drawback, and 18,000 people in unison go, ah! I'm like,
Yes.
I was just like, this is amazing. Amazing.
Legit, you're doing such a good job describing it that it's putting me back in there, and I'm getting goosebumps on my arm. It is one of the most, you know what I mean? It really is one of the coolest scenes. And of course, the UFC does it right. Like you said, they bring it down pitch black. The screens go off. That music is playing, and they got that thing loud, and the bass is pumping, and you can feel it. And you're so right. Everybody in the building turns to that one tunnel where the championship walk is. And even because that championship walk is on the side where the media is at, all the media starts rushing over to the side to get their phones out because they just want to get that little glimpse of that video. And man, you see, it's funny because Magomed Ankalaev was in the cage in front of me. His manager, Rizvan Magomedov, was in his corners. Well, I've known Rizvan for a long time, and even it was walking out, like, even he's kind of looking around like, man, this is crazy, right? I remember making eye contact with him, and be like, you got to admit, it's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's your opponent, even if you're cheering against the guy, it is one of the most iconic and special moments in mixed martial arts right now.
I was working the pit for that main event. And Ankalaev is a big, big dude. He's a big dude.
Yep.
But Poatan, I remember he walked by me and I was just like, This guy made 185 pounds at one point. How in the world did that ever happen?
I will not know. We sat here on this program last week, and I said, listen, as fight week unfolds, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they have their press conference face-off, when they have their ceremonial weigh-ins face-off, because I don't think people realize how big Ankalaev is. But then I was there for both those moments. And Poatan was still towering over Ankalaev. And I remember going back and thinking, like, hey, I think people are going to be surprised. They don't realize how big Ankalaev is. And I'm like, damn it, Pereira's not even big. I mean, he is just a massive human being. And you're right. How he ever made 185 is just ridiculous. And there's no way he'll ever make it again. That run was incredible. But, as we talk about options, I just don't think he could ever make that possible again. That dude is a monstrous human being.
Tell me at what point we are ready to take our victory lap.
I mean, let's go. I know you're never shy to reach over and pat yourself on the back a little bit and just say, hey, look at me. So go ahead and get that started, because I do think it's pretty deserved, to be honest with you.
I mean, I think the writing was on the wall and the odds reflected it. The general fan did not. But me and you definitely understood why these odds were so close, why they were both coming in at even money. And we could say with a level of certainty how this fight was going to play out. And it played out exactly as me and you both laid out. And let's recap. Now, I don't want to revise history. Let's tell history accurately, right? You said, beware, fans. This could end up being just a bogged down, non-exciting fight.
Right.
Which is 100% the way it was.
Yep.
I said Ankalaev is so good, but he not only because he has all the physical attributes and he's a great martial artist, he is so good because he understands the game. He is not going to put himself in too much danger, and he could probably, if he wanted to fight fire with all of his past victories, he could probably get finishes in all of them. But he doesn't put himself in those positions, which he didn't put himself in those positions on Saturday night. So that came to fruition.
Yes. And
then we said the first couple rounds, I remember, and then we both said this point. Whoever walks whoever down, whoever the one doing the walking down is going to win this fight. So the first few minutes are going to be very interesting. Then after 2 rounds, I will have a pretty good idea who is going to win this fight. I said that. After 2 rounds, I'm going to have a good idea of who's going to win this fight. That's exactly what we said last week.
It played out exactly like we thought, and I remember, kind of feeling going into this that it just had, to me, the Ankalaev upset written all over it. Although, again, as you said, the odds, not really a true upset. It was basically a pick 'em, but it just felt like public sentiment really wasn't matching the betting odds in this at all, which we both thought was accurate. Behind the scenes, I told my wife, I was like, I'm pretty sure Ankalaev is going to win, but I found myself having trouble saying that out loud, in most public situations, just because it is hard to pick against Pereira right now. And again, he's got that little special extra, and he's got that one-punch knockout ability, which can change everything, right? He can lose 24 and a half minutes of a fight and still be able to win the fight because of that power that he possesses in that left hand. But it played out exactly like we thought it did. I think the one thing that surprised me a little bit is I felt like Pereira was a little flat, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't want to take away.
It was a lot. Yeah. Let's just be honest.
I agree. And I hesitate in saying that because I don't want to take away from Ankalaev's performance. Because I think if you say, well, Pereira was flat, you're almost at the same time saying
out of hesitancy to. There's a lot of things. Really quick, before you get, because yes, you are leading us in exactly where we need to go.
Yep.
I want to take one step back because there were multiple high-profile people who says Poatan's becoming a superstar, and he may start to be acting like it a little bit. He better get his butt in the gym. Do you think any of that had anything to do with it? Cormier came out and said that. There was a number of guys who came out and said that. Like, we're seeing him everywhere but the gym.
It's interesting, right? I do think, I don't believe that.
Right? You heard it, right?
I've 100% heard it. And I think it's a fair criticism, right? Or at least a fair question, if anything else. We know Pereira's we know he's not a partier, right? So we know he's not obviously he beat alcoholism, right? That's something that he has in his past. That's part of his story. So he's not out drinking and carousing and partying and drugging and what. So it's not that. I don't feel like he's tearing up his body when he's out of the gym. But you're right. He is traveling and going to places and making appearances, which is smart to a degree, right? Your window of opportunity is this big and you need to cash in on every opportunity you get. Let's add in too, he's one of the busier guys in terms of competing, right? He's one of the guys the UFC can go to and says, man, we need you in 6 weeks. Can you please do this? And he does. So I think it's a fair question. I think it's a fair observation. I don't think it's the entire explanation for what happened. I think it's a part of everything together.
Listen, I agree with you because I think, it's either you're 100% dialed in or you could be 99% dialed in, 95% dialed in. But in a game of inches and a game of timing, which is milliseconds, it could end up exponentially. It could end up with exponential growth.
Right.
So, I'm not saying he was or wasn't. I don't have any intimate knowledge. I don't know if some of these social media clips were from a while ago and people are posting them in real time or not. I have no idea. I just wanted to ask the question because that's something I heard, in the last 3-4 weeks leading up to this fight.
And I think it's fair. I think it's a fair question. It's one that he'll have to look at. Glover Teixeira, as a mentor and a coach to him, will probably have to help him look at it as well. The good thing to me is it seems, Plinio Cruz in there as well. It seems like they're all very honest people in their assessments. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they'll turn a blind eye. I think they'll go back to the drawing board and they'll say, hey, how did this impact us? How did this affect us? What can we tweak? What can we change? So I do think it's a fair question. I wouldn't use it as a crutch for the entire explanation of what happened, but I think it's very fair to believe that had something to do with the performance because, as you said, I hesitate just to say that it was flat because I don't want to take away from what Ankalaev was able to execute as well. But I'm glad you said it. Yes, Pereira looked flat. He did. He just did.
Now let's go into why you think he looked flat. Like, what is the reason? Obviously, I'm going to tell you it was Ankalaev made him flat. I want to hear your assessment first, though.
I think so. I mean, Ankalaev did exactly what we thought he needed to do, right? And we knew that he was capable of doing, right? Even to the point that, it was funny you were talking about how the fact that he doesn't, necessarily take risks that are unnecessary. Like, when the crowd started booing, I kind of chuckled in my head because I was like, he don't care. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to make him change whatsoever. So I thought that was part of it. I do wonder as well, though, and I want to hear, because again, I love your explanations and your breakdowns, and I think he was spot on. I do wonder, A, what the state was coming in, and B, if something happened during the course of the fight in terms of the leg kicks. Because I'm going to go ahead and drop a little name right here because it's a name worth dropping. I was seated next to Chuck Liddell all night long, right? And me and Chuck Liddell were watching this fight together and turning. And see, I was on the edge of the media area. He was on the edge of the VIP area. So we were sitting right next to each other. Chuck's a great dude. Obviously, I'd known him for a long time. And during the fight, him and I are talking to each other. And we're like, hey, how'd you have that round? How'd you have that round? We actually both had it 2-2 going into the fifth. So maybe a discussion point about the third and about the fifth. But we both had it 2-2. But the one thing, and Chuck was really mad about two things, or frustrated about two things. You can tell he's an Alex Pereira fan. He was frustrated, number one, with Alex's inability or disregard for digging underhooks when he was defending. Now, he was very effective in defending against the cage, right? I think the final stat was like 0 for 12.
In the head, yes.
Exactly. He was overhooking and pushing away versus digging underhooks and turning and moving and getting off, right? Because when you're overhooking, you're almost like holding him in position. It's almost like close guard on the ground or something. You know what I mean? Unless you're using it to whizzer and turn, and he wasn't necessarily doing that. So that was frustrating Chuck a lot. And the other thing that he was complaining about as well, not complaining, but observing, he's like, where are the leg kicks? Where are the leg kicks? And that was the thing that we said could be a big part of this. Well, obviously with Alex Pereira, it's always a big thing, but Ankalaev, especially, as we noted going in, just simply doesn't check leg kicks. Like, I don't know if he just theoretically opposed to the idea of checking leg kicks, or he just feels it's not necessary, or what is. He just doesn't check leg kicks, and he wasn't doing it early on. And there wasn't a whole lot that happened in that opening round, but what was successful for him in that opening round was the leg kicks. And then as round 2, and then especially 3, 4, and 5 went on, it's almost like he abandoned it entirely when it was clear that he was chewing up that leg. So those were two tactical errors that the Hall of Famer, the legend Chuck Liddell, continued to point out throughout the entirety of that. And I was lockstep with him. I was like, man, you're 100% right.
It's hard to throw that leg kick when it's against a southpaw.
Right. True.
It is. It's a lot more difficult. And that's why that head kick had some success, because the stances are switched when you're against a southpaw like that. The success he did have was round number 1. It was a lot of leg kicks, but let's be honest, he landed 20. Probably, I don't know. It felt like 20. I don't know what it was, but it felt like 20 leg kicks in that first round. And Ankalaev, it walked through every single one of them.
He did.
He didn't buckle once. He only switched stances to maybe give different looks. I never felt that it was compromised. And here is where I'm just going to go with everything is there was a hesitancy all night. Let's go to round number, 4 or 5, when he threw the head kick, and it looked like it kind of wobbled Ankalaev. He never followed up with one single punch. And I keep on going back. Why? I remember I was sitting in the commission seats, and I'm speaking to another judge. He wasn't on that fight, and I made the question. I said, "Do you think his hand is hurt?" because he just was not throwing it. I remember at one point I counted he only threw 3 left hooks at one point, and this was deep into the fight. I could be off because I was watching it more of like, well, there's 100 things going on. I'm going to fight, but I keep on. But then I just said, you know what? There was an expectation. What is going to be the easiest path to victory for Ankalaev? And albeit a great striker, let's not forget he is a great wrestler and a great, submission specialist as well. He's got it all. The avenue for success, the best avenue for success, albeit he didn't say he was going to do this, is to take him down, pit him against the fence. In my personal belief, I believe Poatan was apprehensive about throwing punches because he did not want to extend himself because we saw what happens once that clinch happened. He got put against the fence and he had no way to get off. So he was very apprehensive all night of throwing punches for that exact reason, either getting taken down, but he didn't get taken down. But it's as good as a takedown if you can't move off the fence.
That's it. It's funny. So your initial question, did he potentially have a hand injury? That didn't occur to me, but it would explain a lot, right? If he wasn't able simply to throw it, because you are right. And I remembered in that moment as well, because I'll be honest, I didn't think that high kick initially landed clean. And I don't think it was the flushest strike ever, but the way Ankalaev reacted, I was like, is he really hurt or is he trying to bait him in right now? Yeah, right.
Jarred him.
Still jarred him, absolutely. And you're right. And Pereira was really slow to follow that up, and in fact didn't follow it up. But you're right. And Pereira after, kind of complained about, hey, he just held me against the fence. But I'm very much of the belief that, like, bro, you got to get out of there. You know what I mean? It's the same as like, man, all he did was take me down and lay on top of me. It's like, well, then you got to turn around and get back up. That's not up to the referee to get you out of that position. So I agree. So it's interesting because in a lot of ways, now you and I said going into this, right? Ankalaev is the superior grappler, but don't think he's the power double guy shooting from range. Like, he likes to get into the clinch, and he likes those little trip takedowns, those little foot sweeps, things of that nature. And that's what he tried to do. So in one way, Pereira really lived up to the challenge. Like, he got in those positions and would not be taken down. So I think he maybe even showed better grappling than we may have given him credit for. But in the same token, he completely failed because he didn't get out of that position, and he allowed rounds. I mean, the fourth round, he allowed to just go away because he just couldn't get out of the position. You know what I mean? And if you're allowing yourself, now granted with 5 rounds, you got a little bit more time to work, but still you can't give away rounds simply by an inability to get out of there. But that all brings me back to your initial question is part of the hesitancy, not only the concern of the takedown, but perhaps maybe something was wrong with the hand as well. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm taking away from Ankalaev, but if you watch the post-fight press conference, I did even ask Dana White, like we didn't get to see Pereira. He didn't make it back there. But I did ask Dana, like, did you speak to him? Like, was there something wrong? You know what I mean? Because it just seemed like something was wrong. And again, I hate saying that because I don't want to be a criticism. Dana just said he hadn't had a chance, so he's not really sure. But, he kind of agreed that he looked flat. But normally, again, when somebody loses a fight, that's not normally my question is like, hey, does anybody know if he was injured going in? But it just seemed like something was wrong, whether it be injury, illness, fatigue, mental burnout. I don't know. It's just the sharpness that we've come to expect from him just wasn't there.
There was no kill mode in him that night. It looked like there was no kill mode. Like, there was no beast mode, engaged, switch, right? Right. And I truly believe, because I was like, do you think his hands are? And somebody's like, oh, maybe. I don't know. He's not throwing any punches. It's not. And any of the pundits out there or any of the fans out there that's saying like, hey, Poatan really won either 3 or 5 or listen, the right man won that fight.
Yep.
The right man won the fight.
It's funny because, again, my highly unofficial scorecard, I had it 2-2 going into the final round. I had given Poatan round 1 and 3. And then the 5th happened, and it was really, really close. And I remember thinking, man, I feel like this could go either way. And, a couple of guys that were sitting behind me, Adam Hill, who I respect a lot, longtime journalist, Case Kiefer, longtime journalist as well. They were like, what are you worried? I mean, it's definitely, Ankalaev won at least 3, if not 4. And I was like, man, are you sure? So I was standing up. I was looking at Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan happened to turn, and we made eye contact, and Joe just gave me one of these. He was like, I don't know. And I looked at him, and I was like, I don't know, because to me it was 2-2, and I felt like that fifth could have gone either way. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, you can debate 3 and 5. I think that, those are the only differences in the scorecards is how people felt 3 and 5 went. But you're talking about razor thin, tiny things. I mean, to me, you could judge those either way, to be honest with you, and be completely justified. But at the end of 25 minutes, it just felt like Ankalaev was the right guy. I mean, it's still, the scores have to add up, the rounds have to add up, but it just felt like, that's a fight that maybe, like, had that decision gone to Pereira and he skates out of there by the skin of his teeth with the belt still on his shoulder, I don't hate it, because there just wasn't so much in between the rounds. But when they said and knew, there was no shock from me. There was no upsetting, appalled. It was just like, yeah, that sounds about right.
I had a conversation with somebody actually this morning, believe it or not. We're recording on a Monday. It was a Monday morning. And he goes, man, I just feel though like you need to beat the champion. And he didn't beat the champion. And I said, listen, one, that's like a Ric Flair quote, like nowhere in the world, that was coined by Ric Flair. I said, but you bring up an interesting point, and typically did he definitively beat Poatan? No. But here's the deal. This is my exact words. I go, it's hard to fight somebody who is not fighting you back.
It is. It absolutely
Poatan did not fight. He did not fight him back. He wasn't fighting him. He was trying to maintain distance and throw leg kicks here and there. He did never, in my opinion, did he really engage and say, this is my ground right here. I am defending my ground. That never happened over the course of 5 rounds. It never happened.
I completely agree with you. It's funny, obviously, getting closer to the sport of college wrestling over the past few years with match day. There were a couple times along the year in matches where you'd have like an overpowered opponent and you'd expect a fall or a tech fall, and it wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? And I remember Rob Haydack, same thing in wrestling is true, right? Like, if you're wrestling somebody that like their only goal is just not to get pinned or just not to get tech fall, it's kind of hard to beat them, because they're just, same thing in jiu-jitsu. If you're rolling with a guy that literally the only thing they're trying to do is just make sure you don't submit me, it can get really tough because they're not doing anything to give you any opportunities or openings. So I felt that was the same thing here, man. It felt like the right guy walked away with the belt, and it felt like a fight that you instantly have to do a rematch for, right? Beyond the fact that there's not really any other matchups that we have to see right now. It's just the way this thing played out, coupled with who Pereira is. It feels like, to me, a rematch is the right thing to do. Dana White said, I asked him about that, and he did say, and he always says, hey, caveat, we don't match make on the night of, but probably we're leaning towards rematch unless, for whatever reason, Pereira wants time off or whatever the case may be. Obviously,
and he said he's going to get back in the gym right away.
Yeah, and so I think they'll do a rematch. I don't know if you got a chance to see the post-fight interview in the press room with Ankalaev, but he did say, it's like, hey, he kind of brought up the idea of rematch before I even talked on it. And he did say, and if we run it back, maybe this time Alex can fight for real. And I was like, from not a trash talker, that's pretty strong. But I think it leans into exactly what you're saying. Like, it just wasn't there for whatever reason. So, whether it was tactical error, whether it was mental fatigue.
I was shocked at the ease in which Ankalaev walked him down. I was shocked at it.
Yep.
And that punch, and I think at round number 2, I think Poatan had so much respect for Ankalaev that he wasn't going to wildly engage like he does sometimes and throws punches, because, let's be honest, his power bails him out of jams a lot.
Yep.
He throws that left hook from his hip. He's not a high and tight fighter. He is a really open fighter. And we said he can be hit. If you go back to last week, I said he puts himself in position to get hit. And this is what he can't do with Ankalaev. And he didn't do it really outside of one round. And that one round, in that one moment, round number 2, he got rocked, and he got rocked severely at the tail end of round. I was almost looking at it like, whoo, this is exactly what Izzy did to him in fight number 1.
Yep, he really did. That was a big turning point, I think, for sure. At least a confirming point for both guys in there. They're like, there is danger here. And that's the thing about Ankalaev, right? He's not flashy. He's not taking risk out there, but he packs a punch, man. He's got power. And again, he just doesn't make mistakes. He does exactly what he needs to do. He goes out there and he executes. And you're right. That moment at the end of round 2, you're like, okay, this is a real challenge here. There is imminent danger out there for Pereira that he has to be aware of.
And I just think 3, 4, and 5, Pereira was not willing to go blow for blow and throw and open up for one, the power, and he didn't want to get hit because he knew what it felt like. And then number 2, and probably even more so, like he didn't want to open himself up to be able to get either taken down with any trip takedowns or get pinned against the cage, which ultimately ended up happening anyways. But I just don't think he wanted to open up, which ended up costing him. I think in a rematch, he comes out and he was like, all right, I feel that I'll be able to get up, or I'll be able to get out off the fence. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start trying to take heads. That's what I think he's going to do. I think he learned a valuable lesson here. Is like, my power and power alone cannot bail me out of a jam against a guy like him. I need to go out and fight him.
Agreed. I'll tell you what, I was looking for an email here because I did see this morning. I kind of want to see if it adjusted at all. But BetOnline AG, it's an offshore group. How it has changed already. They already opened a line for a rematch. They're really good about getting out ahead of things, and as soon as things are even rumored, they open a line. But they care to wager at all or take a guess at all as where they open the line for a rematch between Magomed Ankalaev?
Minus 105.
Ankalaev minus 200 versus Alex Pereira plus 170. Now, I will say that it has already swung back a little bit. That line just opened up this morning. It's already been dialed back a little bit by the early action, which makes sense. People want to take Alex Pereira as an underdog. Why wouldn't you? Especially if you believe he had a flat night, especially if you believe whatever, there were other things going in there besides just the technique between these two. It's already come down a little bit to minus 185 for Ankalaev, plus 160 for Alex Pereira, but still a big difference between the line of what these two were going into the first time, which again was basically a pick 'em. And, I felt like public sentiment thought that line was crazy. It proved not to be. So interesting. I'm interested in the rematch. I do think, look, we could have a very similar, like, as we start to break down, whenever this rematch gets announced and whenever it gets happened, because it's going to happen. It's just the fight that makes the most sense. I don't know that the breakdown will be all that different the next time around. These guys are who they are. They fight the way they fight. But it seems like Pereira can change some things. He can tweak some things. He can turn some things up and potentially have a better night. And he could still go out there and lose. Magomed Ankalaev is still a very, very talented, tough competitor.
Yeah, usually at this point in the breakdown, we say what's next for these guys. We know what's next. I would put it at a pick 'em. I just think Pereira second guessed himself way too much in that fight, and it bit him. And I think Ankalaev is that good, and I don't think he'll necessarily change anything. He's going to try and pressure. Who in their right mind is going to pressure Alex Pereira? Guess what? Ankalaev did prove successful, and I don't think that would be the case. Well, let me say, it probably will be the case in the rematch, but I do think that Pereira will defend his territory a little bit harder in the next fight, which then is going to open things up. And it only takes one. It only takes one left hook. I remember I was watching Cageside, and it happened right in front of me. And Pereira threw like one of like 3 that I counted that I recall, and it barely missed. And I almost felt the wind from it, Cageside. I was like, oh, if that landed, but it didn't. And and he never opened himself up to throw it again.
It didn't. It is fun, watching those fights from up close. I mean, just the level of athlete that they both are. I mean, when you're at that level, I mean, obviously you've been in the cage with a lot of athletes and some fantastic ones, including one who fought earlier in the night as well. But, just seeing those massive dudes up close and personal, man, even, the danger that you sense on TV, it's even heightened to a different level, man. Those dudes are studs. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the rematch. When it happens, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Maybe the summer is an international fight week type fight. I don't know. We'll see how the schedule plays out. But I'm looking forward to it. I kind of agree with you, man. I think it's going to be a very even fight again the second time around. We'll see what adjustments are made. I just feel like whether it was physical, whether it was mental, whatever it was, there was something a little bit off with Lex. And this is coming from somebody that thought Ankalaev had a very good chance of winning the fight. So for one last time, I just want to make it clear, I'm not taking away from the guy. I just don't know that Pereira was at 100% on Saturday night. So that's what makes me anxious for a rematch as well, because I think it's going to be that same tension once again when they step in there a second time.
Let's go to the co-main event. Justin Gaethje is beloved. This is a beloved guy. because he is a fun fighter. You know you are going to get a fight. And what a great guy. I mean, on short notice, you could not ask for a better backup in a better dance partner in Rafael Fiziev. And man, that was such a fun fight. And from the standpoint of round number one, the way round number one unfolded, he goes, guess what? I'm going to take you down, Division I wrestler. Yeah. I'm going to take you down. And it happened literally right in front of me. I was 5 feet. And Justin Gaethje chuckled when it happened. I watched
Did he really?
Like almost roll his eyes. And then he put in like a butterfly hook and just beasted him off.
Oh, that's too funny, man. I love those little details. I didn't pick up on that. That's incredible. But yeah, I mean, that was not the way any of us saw that the opening to that fight going, right? I mean, but I love it, man. Create a little chaos, do something a little different, try to change things up. And Fiziev, it's unfortunate. You know, I was kind of working on my UFC rankings vote this morning, and you know, here's a guy, Fiziev, that's dropped 3 straight fights in the lightweight division. Although it's to Gaethje twice and to Mateusz Gamrot as well. So
but Gamrot beat out his knee too.
Exactly. So, but the record is 3 straight losses. You know what I mean? But it's like you can't really. You can't penalize the guy. You got to give him all the love and the respect in the world to step up against an opponent like Gaethje, to do it on short notice. It is, to be honest with you. I mean, we talked about it, right? How shocked. I was shocked that Gaethje was an underdog in this situation. I get it. It was brought up in the press conference, and Gaethje even joked about it. He was like, it's because I went to sleep last time. You know what I mean? So, like,
it's
he got it.
He went to sleep. It's the way he went to sleep. It's how long he was asleep. It was the vicious nature of it. I mean, literally, they rolled him over, and he was still just, like, dead weight. Yeah. I mean, that was scary. It was a scary, potentially career-changing knockout. It
really was. And so I get it. But to me, I mean, Gaethje legit, like, you could just sit here and talk. I mean, Gaethje is legit once in a lifetime type, one of the most exciting dudes ever in the history of the sport. I mean, the highlight, come on, that's a nickname. That dude is just as good as it gets, as exciting as it gets, and he said it from the beginning. I don't know how long I can continue to fight like this. I know the body can only go through so many wars. I don't know how long he can keep doing it, but I just don't know if there's ever been a more exciting guy in the sport. And it was great to see him rally back from that tough opening round, get the final 2 rounds, take home the decision win. And now he's saying, look, I don't know what's next for me. I mean, if Hooker heals up quick, you could easily put that back together. I mean, that's a fight that everybody wants to see. But he's saying, listen, before I'm said and done, I want Islam one more time, man. I want to go face Islam Makhachev. I want to fight for the title. And, and Dana White.
Has he or not? Does he deserve it from a loyalty and brand perspective with this win, taking it on short notice against a very dangerous guy with where, obviously, Arman Saryukin might not be in favor with the UFC right now for what happened just a few weeks ago. Does he deserve that shot? Because I want to throw out a scenario that I think is just logical, and I haven't heard anybody talking about this yet.
Let's hear it.
Justin Gaethje, Arman Saryukin for the number 1 contender fight.
Absolutely. I mean, you could do that in a heartbeat. And does he deserve it? I mean, yeah. Does he? Is this a win? Does beating the number 11 guy? He was supposed to face number 6. He ends up facing number 11. No fault of his own, so you can't really penalize him for that. But on the surface, is this enough to be like, well, you beat number 11 by decision, you clearly need to be in a number 1 contender fight next? I could see how you could argue against it. And I could see how a guy like Charles Oliveira on the outside looking in might say, wait. But when you put the whole body of work, when you put together the fact that no fan is ever going to say no to anybody you match up Justin Gaethje with, then you're 100% right, man. That's a spot you can put him in right now. So I love that idea. And, depending on the time, it looks like we're going to have Islam and Ilia Topuria is the fight that we're going to see. Maybe you put that as the co-main event just so you've got backups if anything weird happens, and they're on the same time schedule and the same timeline if everything does go well. So that'd be a hell of a 1-2 punch for a pay-per-view. I mean, to me, you could do that as a main and co-main event. I know the UFC likes to put 2 title fights when they can, but you tell me that's the main and the co-main of a pay-per-view and you think anybody's going to complain whatsoever? Absolutely not. So I think you might be onto something there. I think that might be something that they discuss as well.
And that's going to be something is like, okay, Arman, you burned us. Now you have to earn it.
Yep.
Let me introduce from my left. This is the highlight, Justin Gaethje. But at the same time, I'm talking myself into saying, why not now for Justin Gaethje? His body of work, I think he deserves it. Maybe not rankings wise. And then if you're not going to give him a title shot for his importance, because I think they did that. They did that with, let's be honest, they did that with Dustin Poirier. He ends up beating like the 9th or 10th ranked in Benoit Saint Denis, right?
Yep.
That wasn't a shot that gives him that wasn't a fight that gives him a title. So it's the same thing. Like, why not give Justin this title? Or Saryukin, but then I forgot there is Ilia Topuria there. And now that I'm guessing it, I want Ilia Topuria, and more importantly, the Makhachev camp wants Ilia Topuria to earn it. Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje for the right to face Islam Makhachev.
Look, that's what's great about those 4 names right there. You could put those in any order you want. You know what I mean? Like literally. And that is the thing about Gaethje. So if they came out right now and they said, listen, here's what we decided to do. Islam doesn't believe that Ilia Topuria is a lightweight. And so he wants Ilia to prove that he's a lightweight. In order to do that, Ilia Topuria will face Arman Saryukin in a number 1 contenders fight. Ilia's okay with that. He's in. In the meantime, Islam Makhachev will face Justin Gaethje for the UFC lightweight championship of the world. Nobody's going to complain. You know what I mean? Like, so you could do that. Gaethje do the wins and losses necessitate that's where he is right now? No. Look, if they came out tomorrow and said, guys, you're not going to believe what happened. Jack Della Maddalena, man, he's having some visa issues. He's not going to be able to make it over. Bilal Muhammad will now fight Justin Gaethje for the welterweight title of the world.
Done.
Nobody's complaining, right? Everybody's like, yeah, no, I'm good with that. You know what I mean? So that's what's great about Justin Gaethje is, the body of work and who he is as a fighter. It does not matter what spot you put him in. You're going to get 0 complaints from fans. And to be honest with you, even people in his division who get leaped over could probably be like, well, I'm not really satisfied with this, but I get it.
Do you think he deserves to show or to give him the benefit of the doubt? Let's be honest, like they did Dustin Poirier fighting a guy like Benoit Saint Denis, like Justin Gaethje just did fighting on short notice Rafael Fiziev, who's a stud, right? And so they give Dustin Poirier a title off that because they're like, hey, I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you think that's justified?
If Islam Makhachev is saying that I don't know that Ilia Topuria is the guy right now and I don't want to face a featherweight, if the UFC came to him and said, well, how about Justin Gaethje? I don't think Islam would turn that down. Number 1, they have the same management team anyway, so they're going to make that happen. But, the manager does work for Islam, so if Islam's got to be in on it, I can't see Islam turning that down. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, even fighters are fans of Justin Gaethje. You know what I mean? Like, even they get like, that, like, I'm not going to say no to that dude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you right now, let's just get crazy. Let's say Justin Gaethje wants to fight Dricus du Plessis. You think Dricus du Plessis is going to be like, man, that's a lightweight. I'm not fighting that guy. They'll be like, bring me that guy. Let's go. Like, what?
He'll make money. You will make money.
100%, man. So, yeah, they're in a good spot. And Gaethje, you just can't say enough praises for Gaethje, man. He's incredible. But I think, and you started off right, man. I think you got to give credit to Fiziev as well, man. You got to give credit for how he performed. The fact that on short notice, halfway around the world, he was still driving in the 3rd round.
I saw him fatigue in round 2 that led to. I saw him fatigue. And the 3rd round was pretty close. And I was sitting with a judge watching that, and he's like, "Man, where do you think in this round?" And I kind of like turned to him and I go, I think Justin Gaethje's running away with this. He's running away with it. The differences in the punches, the differences in the effect of the punches, the differences on the punches, on the clinch and on the break of the clinch. Like, yeah, it was close, but in my opinion, Gaethje was clearly running away with it.
I would agree with that. If you're just looking at numbers, I was actually kind of pulling up the numbers to see. Even the numbers, significant strikes in round 3, 39-30, but the weight of those shots is what's different. Fiziev was ripping to the body a lot, but he was doing it a lot late. So, man, that uppercut, by the way, in round 2, oh my gosh, man, that man just cracks. Beautiful, man, just gorgeous technique. So, yeah, Gaethje's the man, and Fiziev deserves credit as well, man. He stepped up and he delivered.
Are you dropping him any spots?
Nope, left him right where he was. Didn't move him at all.
That's the John Morgan I know.
He stays right there. He didn't slip at all. So, we'll see if the rest of the panel believes the way I had it, but I didn't drop him at all. I respect the effort. I respect the chances he took, and I respect the results that he has. So, great stuff there, man. And let's be honest, man, the card needed it, right? Because, man, if you take this card away, if you take this fight, you take Justin Gaethje off this card, man, it would have felt even a little bit rougher than it did.
We lost 2 fights day of.
That's right. Crazy, man. Only 10 fights. Yeah, that was wild, man, to lose fights on the day of. Wild. I was literally about walking out of my house to go to the arena when the call came in. So, wild.
All right. We got just a few minutes left in the podcast, but opening fight of the main card. Mauricio Ruffy, King Green. A superstar was born. Agreed?
He really was. Agreed. He was. It's funny. I'm a King Green homer. That's all there is to it. I love me some King Green. I love him when he was Bobby Green. You know what I mean? Like he's a personality. He's a fun fighter. I love how real he keeps it, man. He's always been really good to me. I had a chance to talk to him for Garden City Media in the week leading up to it. Yeah. Great interview, man, and he's just so open. You know what I mean? Like he just says things the way they are, and he doesn't try to sugarcoat anything. And I like him, and I like his fighting style.
Babies with 3 baby mamas, and they try
3 baby mamas. And you and I, are fans of his style, the fans of his everything about it. But you always knew when this matchup was announced. As much as I'm a King Green homer, like hands down against this dude is not safe at all. And man, listen, you have been. You are an early adopter of the Mauricio Ruffy's, bandwagon of just skills. And again, obviously from a professional standpoint, but you had a chance to see him up close and personal. And from the moment you first saw him as an athlete, and you and I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of fights that we've seen for years and years and years, you get those moments, right, where you just see somebody's fast twitch. You see their power. You see the way they're built, the way they move, and you go, oh, that dude is different. And it appears that Mauricio is different. And the fighting nerds, man, my goodness, what they're putting together. This spinning wheel kick KO. I mean, I'm just reaching out to the World MMA Awards right now and letting them know we're not even going to have nominations this year. You know what I mean? We're not even going to bother with a vote. I mean, that's got to be knockout of the year, right? That's spectacular.
I mean, we are only in. What are we, beginning of March? I mean, we have a long way to go, but I mean, shit, that bar is set sky high.
Yep.
Let's be honest. We are playing back Edson Barbosa clips still. This was a repeat, and this was in the first round. It wasn't when people were tired. The speed in which this came from, and it was spectacular.
So and you're so right, because Edson Barbosa, one of the cleanest knockouts ever. And we always talk about this. I mean, this is kind of weird to talk about, but it's true. When you talk about highlights, the way the opponent falls is part of the highlight too, right? And when Terry Edom, just stiffens up and falls back against Edson Barbosa, you're like, that's insane. As much as I love Bobby Green and I hated to see it, this was the same too, right? Because it was like a video game knockout, face first, down there. I mean, it was insane. Just everything about it was gorgeous, but you and I obviously talked on the night of, right after it happened, and your observation was spot on. And it wasn't just the kick. If you really want to appreciate how good the knockout was, don't just look at the kick itself, but look at the setup of what led to the kick, and it's just executed flawlessly. And now what's cool is in that moment since, we've been seeing clips on social media of him drilling exactly that, which always to me makes it even more beautiful. I mean, not that something spontaneous and crazy in the moment isn't beautiful, but when you know that was a plan that was put together and you went out and executed to that skill level, incredible.
Do you remember what I said to you? I walked up. I worked. I was a replay official for that, and so I had the benefit of watching it back a few times right after it happened. I was like, shit, pause. I'm like, I need to see this setup. Do you recall what I got up? I literally got up, walked off the RO to you. Do you recall what I said?
Yeah, you were thrilled in the setup and the way that he threw the left hand out there, really not even trying to do anything but to load the hips and to set the movement to fire the shot. I didn't know that you had the benefit of frame by frame instant replay at the time because I was like, damn, that's a really good observation in real time, but spot on.
But no, it's because, he was pumping the jab in front of it. What does pumping the jab do? It's turning your hips, right?
Yep.
So if you extend that jab, by default, you're elongating your body, which by default is turning your hips, right? So there is zero telegraphing. There was zero telegraphing that spinning hook kick. Everybody says spinning wheel kick. It's a spinning hook kick. It's old school Taekwondo. New wave, John Rogan calls it spinning wheel kick. Spinning hook kick, which is now a spinning heel kick. Same thing, right? But there was no telegraph to it. And a lot of times you can see people, he's about to do a spinning attack by the way they start loading their hips early.
Yep.
And there was none of that in this. And I was like, holy shit. Like, this guy, a star was born. What is next for him? They got to give him a top 10 opponent now, right? They have to.
I think so. You got to put him in the race. So, that was one I looked at. Is that division is deep, man. Obviously, lightweight, man, is absolutely stacked. I think there's over 100 guys on the roster. So even to break into the top 15 is tough. And I think really to break into the top 15, you need to face a top 15 opponent. You just need that. But King Green is a guy that's been there, that was ranked for quite a while.
A top 10 opponent.
No, I agree. I mean, you could put him. I mean, that's again, this dude is pure
Let's
action.
pull up the rankings. Let's have fun with this. Do you have the lightweight rankings right in front of you?
I do. All right, so lightweight rankings right here. You want to start at 15, or do you want me to start all the way at 10?
Let's start at 10.
Okay, well, you're skipping over some names already, but 10 is Renato Moicano. I mean, a little Brazil on Brazil violence. I don't know. 9 is Beneil Dariush, the name that he called out, a smart one as well. Then you start getting into 8. You have Mateusz Gamrot. 7, Michael Chandler. 6, Dan Hooker, who we know is out right now. Let me just say, I know you're saying top 10, but let me throw some names out there.
Yeah, go.
15, Benoit Saint Denis. 14, Grant Dawson. Don't necessarily love the stylistic matchup there, but an opponent. 13 is Jalen Turner. Got to think he's out after this weekend. Obviously, he announced his retirement, which was surprising. I literally told him, I was like, don't make this decision right now. I know it's not my place, but I was like, Jalen, you don't have to make this decision right now. But you got to imagine he's out. 12 is Paddy Pimblett. He's tied up. 11 is Rafael Fiziev, who stylistically, that would be a hell of a fight as well. So you got a lot of names there. Eric, man, I was gonna say you were in Las Vegas. You got to see Power Slap. You got to see Timo Lorin. And let's say you're in the war room on Tuesday. Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard. They look at you and they're like, we just don't know what to do with this cat. What do we do, Eric, my man?
Benoit Saint Denis.
You like Saint Denis there, yeah?
Yeah. Regardless of rankings, I mean, that's a fight. That's like a man's man fight.
That is, man. That's a stud of a human. That would be a great fight, man. I love that. And again, that would just be 15. So that's not egregious. Like I said, I mean, you could look at Fiziev, like honestly, stylistically, Fiziev at 11 would be incredible. But you could also see people going, well, hold on, man. Fiziev just got done with Gaethje at 3, and Ruffy's not even in the rankings yet. But I mean, to put him right there at 15, maybe Benoit Saint Denis bumps up to 14. We'll see. Again, we haven't seen the rankings shake out. You can pay attention to my social media later today. We'll post the updates as soon as they're ready to be announced. But yeah,
well, either way, Turner's dropping out regardless.
Turner's dropping out regardless. Yeah, even if it's just based on the fact that he lost to Ignacio Bahamondes, not the retirement. I can tell you that Jalen Turner was still eligible in the rankings, so they didn't remove him already. There's some paperwork that has to be filed and all that, not just because somebody says they're retiring. So he's still eligible to be ranked. But I would think even the loss to Bahamondes would drop him out of there. So we'll see. But yeah, you got to give him a ranked opponent. I think he's ready for it. He's calling for a ranked opponent that shows. Because I don't hate when guys say, don't rush me. I'm young. I'm getting ready. I'm developing. That's not a bad idea because once you're in the top, you're facing nothing but the top.
I don't like the Dariush fight, though. And I don't like it for this reason. He is so seasoned and crafty.
True.
He's polished everywhere that I just see that, like, not biting off more than he should, because I do think he can beat him. But I think he just needs another just spectacular fight. And I don't see Beneil Dariush being a spectacular fight, because Dariush is going to come in and he's going to bog you down. He is too smart to just, play, all right, young fella, let's go. Even though, Ruffy ain't that young. So that's why I just love. Do I think that Benoit Saint Denis, does he have the grappling that we haven't seen Mauricio Ruffy deal with yet? Yes.
Yep.
Is he tough as nails? Does he have the power to put anybody's lights out? Yes.
Yep.
Is he a guy that was beating, Dustin Poirier's ass until Dustin Poirier said, "Hold on, young feller," not young feller, but hold on, guy. I'm still the lion, and had to turn things around. Yes, and for all those reasons, I think about looking at it, that is the perfect fight to make. That is going to say, hey, Benoit Saint Denis, are you still? Can you still be the man? And it's also going to say to Ruffy, "You ready for the big boys?"
I'm telling you, that's a great matchup. I'd love to see it. He's going to get a big fight next. I mean, there's no doubt that I think everybody sees, they have a star on their hands. And again, I just want to give a shout out to this Fighting Nerds team, man. In addition to UFC 313, there was a press conference on Friday for UFC 314, which is next month in Miami. And you had John Silva and Carlos Prates, both from that team as well. And I'm telling you, the fan reaction that they got was unbelievable, man. I mean, there is so much support building around them. And then, not even to mention Kyle Ohio as well, who's doing great things at middleweight. So
it's on Joe Rogan.
It's great, man. It's absolutely great. I like John Silva, man. I think that dude's exciting as well. John Silva, I think, is somebody.
On his hands with Bryce Mitchell, though.
Ooh, I love that fight, man. I love that fight. Bryce Mitchell, man. It was. As someone obviously who's been a fan of Bryce Mitchell for a long time, and I know obviously from your neck of the woods, you've known him and watched his rise for a long time. The public sentiment was squarely against him at that press conference, man. He was getting booed tremendously.
Definitely, I can say that confidently. I'm very disappointed in recent transgressions, but hey.
Yeah, look, he's come out and apologized for it, but you're right. None of us like seeing it. I think we were all just like, "Come on, man, what are you doing, Bryce?" But I still hate, I hate to see the way he was getting treated, but I get it. I totally understand why people were turned against him. And John Silva just absolutely played into it. And John Silva, the fighting style that he has, man, it's aggressive, it's exciting, but it is going to be a tough fight. I did get to see Bryce after. I know he's excited for the matchup as well because I think he thinks it's going to be fierce. And I'm telling you, listen. Anytime Alexander Volkanovski is in a room, that man is commanding the attention, and absolutely so. Michael Chandler and Patty, that card is so good in Miami, and obviously we got a couple weeks before we break down that. But as far as just the stories and the fan interest, Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, two beloved guys in the sport.
You know whose careers are mimicking each other right now?
Who's that?
Diego Lopez is a year and a half ahead of Mauricio Ruffy.
Yeah, 100%.
Just burst onto the scene. Both guys who are a little bit older, so they're not coming in at 21, 22. They're seasoned, and they're doing spectacular things, and they are taking massive leaps up these rankings.
Yeah. I would agree with you. Their ascension in the UFC, especially. Now, Diego, obviously, he had a much more looping, tumultuous ride to get to the UFC. But you're right. What Diego Lopez has been able to do is unbelievable, man. So it's so cool. It's one of the best stories. But I was just going to say, look, Michael Chandler, Patty Pimblett, obviously, two very, very popular figures as well. But I'm telling you.
I'm giddy for that fight.
Oh, that'll be a phenomenal fight. How about Yair Rodriguez and Patricio Pitbull? That's a phenomenal fight. But I'm telling you right now, because I was in the building, the heat by far. As excited as everybody was, and as much star power was on that stage, the heat between Bryce Mitchell and John Silva and the crowd around it, oh my God. So looking forward, man. That's going to be a great card in Miami, next month. Looking forward to that one. But man, we got Anu. Whether you like it or not, we got Anu. We got a new champ, and we got a rematch. And you know what? It makes the division a little more interesting right now. It kind of changes things. Fresh champions do kind of
it really does.
Listen,
I don't think that. I think Dana White loves having Pereira as his champion. He loves it. From a business standpoint, he loves it. But on some level, there had to be a little inside of Dana that was happy with it, because you know what it took off the table for Jon Jones?
Oh, 100%. I thought the same thing. Because listen, if Alex Pereira wins that fight in devastating fashion, Jon Jones is going to be like, I don't care about this Aspinall guy. Give me that dude right there. Give me the star. So you're 100%. Because I really did think about that. The fact that Dana's coming out saying, man, I really feel good about Jones Aspinall. I think it's going to happen this summer. But I'm like, well, why is Jon waiting? What's he waiting for? To me, I thought,
yeah, he's like, he got everything except time and location.
Yeah,
like
I
those are like very critical steps.
Yeah. Hey, we got everything other than a city and a date, but other than that, it's locked up.
Well, so like, okay, listen, I think Dana White, he shoots you straight 99% of the time.
Yep.
I don't think he's shooting us straight here, and I'm going to tell you why. This past week, Aspinall came out and said, I'll fight somebody else. He's running from this fight. I'll fight somebody else. Alex Pereira loses. Dana White says, I'm confident the fight is going to happen. We just need a time and a date. We've got everything else worked out. Guess what happened that night? Alex Pereira dropped out. You can't have him fight Jon Jones now. That's what made him so confident, in my opinion. Right. So I don't think like we're always so confident. I think it puts the ball back in the UFC's court saying, nobody else, man. Your golden boy just lost. There's no way we're making that fight, Jon. The only way that you are ever going to fight again is against this behemoth of a human named Tom Aspinall, who's been calling you out for the better part of a year and a half now.
Yep. I agree with you there. I mean, whether or not I agree with the assessment of, is Dana shooting a straight or not, you may be right, but you're 100% right in that was the result of Saturday night's fight was a huge benefit to the UFC in making Jones and Aspinall. Make no mistake about that, because had Pereira won.
But really quick, why would Aspinall come out on last Wednesday and say, I'll fight somebody else? I'm sick. I'll fight somebody else.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the loss happened Saturday. Dana White's like, hey, everything's good. What are you talking about? Everything's good.
Listen, Aspinall's a smart guy, man. Aspinall gets the game. So I'm sure Aspinall was sitting back saying the same thing. I bet Aspinall was looking at the same thing. Whether or not they told him, hey, Tom, we're trying to put this fight together, but Jon keeps saying Alex Pereira, I don't know. That could have happened. And if it did happen, then I like what Aspinall's doing. But I think Aspinall is a smart enough observer of not only, the sport, but everything that's happening and all the potentials. Like, he gets the full picture. And so I think Aspinall is probably looking at the same things that we are. They're like, oh my God, if Pereira wins this, like, Jon's going to start talking about Pereira. Like, I already know it. Like, so I'm just going to get out ahead of this thing. So I think it was a preemptive strike, not so much that he necessarily knew. But bottom line, it all boils down to this took an option off the table right now. And that's a good thing if you're Tom Aspinall.
There's only one thing to do now, right? The public sentiment isn't there for that fight with Jon Jones and Pereira anymore. There's only one fight left to make. Hopefully it gets announced sometime soon, because if it happens, it's going to be International Fight Week. It's the only time to do it.
Be a great summer matchup, man. That would be fun. I'd love to see it, man.
All right. What do you got coming up this weekend?
Hey, UFC. Well, no, UFC was this past week. It's funny, like UFC 313 in the book. CFFC 140 is what I was trying to say. CFFC 140. It's on March 14th, so that's why the 314s was all messing me up there. But Friday night in Philadelphia, excited about it. We got our lightweight title in line, but also a special feature, man. I know it was a busy week for you, so I don't know if you got to see this, but this is cool. Yaroslav Amosov, the former Bellator welterweight champ, and Curtis Millender, the longtime Big Show veteran. They're going to be in a special showcase bout. They were actually supposed to fight each other at a regional event in the Chicago area the same night. And basically this was presented to us as like, I think they both wanted to compete on Fight Pass. And so it was presented to Rob Haydack as like, hey, would you guys be interested in having this on your card? Now it's different than what we normally do, right? We're normally looking for up and coming athletes, developmental athletes. But man, when this opportunity was presented, like, how do you turn that down? Like, hell yeah, we want to have that on our card. So really, really cool opportunity, man, to have this at CFFC. It's at 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. So if you're in the Philly area, limited tickets remain, but it's always a great atmosphere in there. And if you can't, myself and Andre Petrosky actually will be on the mic with me for this one this weekend, this Friday night. And then I'm going to fly back on Saturday morning. Saturday is my birthday. So I'm going to call the fights on Friday night. I'm going to fly back on Saturday, and me and my wife, my kid, are going to go to the Apex, and I'm not going to work. I'm just going to hang out and watch a couple fights at the Apex, so it should be a good weekend. How about yourself? Busy as always, I imagine?
This week's insane for me. Game tonight, Grizzlies game tonight, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday.
Wow.
4 games in the next 5 nights. No, 6 nights. 4 games in 6 nights.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's a run right there. So the wife is happy to have you home, but just guess what? I'm not actually home, even though I'm home.
I said I was home for 1 night before I go. I'm gone for a night. I'm home a night. I'm gone for a night. I'm home a night. Gone for 2 nights.
God bless it. God bless it. But we wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. So with that being said, man, fun episode. Stars born in Mauricio Ruffy, Ankalaev, and new Justin Gaethje, still beloved. He's still got the chin, and he's still got the power. Obviously, probably instant rematch with Pereira and Ankalaev. I'm here for it. But for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.